morning, YouTube. Today, I want to talk about why you cannot trust any dealerships, especially even Ferrari dealerships. And you can't even trust Carfax when it comes to buying Ferraris.
So are you recording all of the nefarious activities?
If you're new to the channel, my name is Dan, this is my garage, and this channel is all about the supercar ownership experience. We're going to talk about these dealerships and why they're always sketchy, and also why Carfax isn't reliable, especially when it comes to buying Ferraris. But before we do that, real quick, I have a drive coming up if you want to join me on an awesome weekend. It's only 2 weeks away, well, it's less than 2 weeks by the time this video comes out. It's from February 26th through the 28th. It's the Normal Guy Super Tour. You can go check that out. Also, we're going to be talking about consultation services that I offer in this video. So if you need any consultation services with buying or selling a Ferrari, check them out on my website, normalguysupercar.com, and I can help you out with buying or selling the car of your dreams. Okay, so back to the story. We have quite a whopper of a story. Actually, this comes from one of my consultation clients. So about a year ago, I had a consultation where someone was interested in buying a Ferrari 458, and we had some discussions about what to look for and other things like that. After the discussion, they felt very comfortable, and then they went on their own and found some cars. I didn't actually discuss this specific car. I never went and saw it or anything like that, so I want to make sure that's clear, because hopefully I would have noticed some of these things. I don't know if I would have or not, but I could have. So we're not going to disclose certain details about this story because I don't like burning bridges in the business world, and also the person who told me this story asked me specifically to not disclose information that could lead to people identifying his car. Understandably, he doesn't want his car to be impacted in a negative way from this videos. All right, so like I said, we had a consultation, and the individual then proceeded to purchase a car. It was a Ferrari 458 from a dealership. It was extremely highly optioned. This car was about $350,000 when it was brand new, so this is a very highly optioned Ferrari 458. Amazing spec, absolutely beautiful. Very low miles. I think it was around 5,000 or 6,000 miles. Because of all of this, it was kind of billed as a top condition, very high-end car, and he paid a high price. This was a very nice car, and when you get to certain levels on these cars, the price goes up dramatically when they're very, very good conditions. If you buy a Ferrari and you pay top dollar, you have certain expectations that this car is flawless, or at least very, very good condition. Fast forward to months later. So this guy has now owned this car for close to a year. He reached out to me because of my story with the sketchy dealership experience I had with my truck. He said, oh boy, you're not gonna believe what happened to me. He takes his car in for its annual service, and it goes into a shop, and right off the bat, the shop says, hey, did you know that your Ferrari has been repaired? It has body damage. And he's like, what are you talking about? This car was perfect. The Carfax was perfect. Everything was perfect on this car. Super low miles, paid top dollar. Dealership assured me this thing was flawless, never had been in accidents, repeatedly had verified all that sort of information. And the shop, says, oh, no, this has been in an accident. Let me show you. So they bring over and they show him on the fender, and by using a paint meter and just looking at it, you could see the orange peel on the fender is different, and the paint meter clearly shows there's a difference in paint thickness in a certain area. That brings up some obvious concerns of this person, and they say, well, how the hell did this happen, and why didn't it show up on Carfax, and why didn't the dealership tell me? Here's where the story gets really crazy. Turns out the car was originally sold in New York, and then the person who owned this car for its first, however long, it's only a 2-owner car. So the first owner of the car had it the whole time, and then when he traded it in, it got sent to auction, where it was then bought by a dealership, traded with another dealership, and then sold back to this person who lives in the same area that the car was originally sold. So had that not happened, this story might have been different. So the guy finds out that the car had been repaired at a certain shop, and it turns out that they're like, oh yeah, we did the repairs on this car. We recognize that car. We know that car. Here's the paperwork on all the repairs that were done to this car. And so you go through it, and I'll post some of it here. There is over $40,000 in damage that was repaired on this car. $40,000. None of it shows up on Carfax, and no one disclosed this information anywhere. What the hell happened? The owner of this car finds out the previous owner's information and gives him a call and says, hey, just letting you know, I bought the car. I wanted to find out the history on it, yada, yada. The previous owner was willing to talk to him and says, yeah, like I was driving the car and, or parked the car and supposedly like a truck or something sideswiped the car. I'm not sure I believe that story, because if that's true, it had to have been a serious sideswipe, because some of the damage is not just the fender. It destroyed the skirt on the side of the car. The skirt had to be replaced. It also bent and destroyed the wheel. So the wheel and the tire had to be replaced. Now, to hit a car hard enough to damage the wheel to need to replace it, you've hit that car hard. You didn't just do something soft. Our concern is not necessarily that the car actually got sideswiped. We think it probably was driven hard, lost control, and hit a curb. That is a much more likely scenario, or maybe even a tree. So here's the problem. If that car was driven by the owner and he lost control and crashed it, the car was repaired by insurance. So he made an insurance claim, and it's very likely he did not admit fault. He said, oh, the car was parked, yada, yada, here's the damage. I didn't do it. So that way the insurance won't change his rates dramatically for crashing a Ferrari. It's more likely that the Ferrari actually was driven and wrecked and whatever. But that whatever. The insurance pays out on this thing to the shop that has the paperwork. The shop denies ever having done these repairs, even though they have an invoice that they gave the owner, the new owner, showing that it was paid for by insurance. So it's like really weird. They're basically not wanting to admit that they fixed it, even though they clearly fixed it. So the insurance company and the repair shop, neither of them reported it to Carfax. And that's one of the things I wanted to bring up that's very important to remember. Carfax, they are not a government entity. There is no requirement by law for anyone to report to Carfax. So what happens with these cars is frequently when they get damaged, number one, people tend to pay in cash if it's a smaller incident, because they don't want it going on Carfax, so they don't claim it with their insurance. Second of all, many insurances that are kind of more catering to the exotic car owners don't talk to Carfax, period. So a lot of these cars aren't insured under the big names like State Farm and Allstate and whatever. They're insured under these other companies. They have no reason to ever report to Carfax. So what that means is if you are buying a Ferrari and you're like, oh, but it's got a clean Carfax, this thing has never been in an accident, that doesn't mean anything. You have to do your due diligence to make sure that this car is in good shape and never been in an accident. And the way you can do that is, of course, learning how to look for those things, or pay someone an independent PPI to be done. So that's the trick. It needs to be independent, and it needs to be someone who's good. You can't just do it through some random person. Now, I've previously said I don't trust PPIs, and that's because so many of them are bad. And the people who are doing it aren't very good, or they're not really interested, or they're not independent. So they're interested in the sale and they're not going to disclose everything because it's more important to get the sale done. So if you choose to do PPI, which you should do in many cases, make sure it's with a trusted source. Find out what they're going to do. Make sure you understand exactly what they're going to charge you for and what they're going to look over and what they're not, and what sort of information they would disclose. A PPI should have revealed that this car had this damage. Because the car was repaired and then traded in, it never probably was disclosed to the one dealership that originally bought it. But here's where it gets really, really tricky. So the car was traded in, and then somehow, I don't know exactly how, the owner found out that it was sold or exchanged to the dealership that he bought the car from for like $175,000 and sold for way over $200,000. The only way that car could have been worth $175,000 is if they knew about the damage. If that car had been undamaged, even at wholesale, it would have been well over $200,000. Something's sketchy going on there, and I'm pretty sure the dealership that sold it to this guy knew it was damaged, because you've got all these experts looking at the car and buying this car, and they're not noticing some pretty obvious damage. I don't know. And second of all, how hard would it have been for them to find out that there was repairs done to it by talking to their network, because they knew the shops that this car had been taken to. In the Carfax, it shows who did the work on this car. So you can't really blame the company that did the repairs, because it's not in their interest and they don't have any obligation to report it to Carfax. But it is kind of weird that they're like not really wanting to take ownership over the fact that they did do the work. But then it's also really fascinating that the dealership clearly failed to disclose information that they most likely knew. So where does that leave the owner of the car, he's not sure what he should do. His legal recourse could be nothing because it's a lot of he said, she said stuff. Like if he goes to the dealership and says, I know you know, what proof does he have? There's probably no document that says that they knew somehow that it was damaged and sold him a damaged car but promised that it wasn't. He could go to them and just out of good faith ask them to give him some sort of rebate or whatever. Probably not gonna happen. Not so likely. So basically he's got this car now, which is an amazing car. It has been repaired and the repairs are fine. It's a, they did a good job. So that being said is true. Now, if the public knows that this car has been damaged and it goes on the Carfax or somehow gets out there, the value of that car will be hurt somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000. So huge hit to the value of the car. And that is why people don't disclose information about these cars when they do get in accidents. It's catastrophically expensive. Honestly, I've already said that to myself. If my car gets damaged, I will pay for it out of pocket unless it is so catastrophic that I need to get insurance involved. Other than that, I'll pay for it out of pocket and have it done through shops that are independent and don't talk to Carfax because the risk to the value of the car is so great it's not worth it. Unless it's someone else's insurance and you plan to sue them for diminished value. So some states allow this, some don't, but you can actually go after someone else for diminished value if your car gets damaged and it's their fault. If you do it yourself, you cannot. So that is one thing to note very importantly. If I accidentally damage my own car, I cannot sue myself or sue the insurance company for diminished value. It's on me, it's my fault, it's my problem. And as long as we're talking about other sketchy, weird things, as you know, I bought a truck and trailer to transport cars, and part of the reason is because I do not trust shipping companies at all. I know so many horror stories, and so many of my clients have had bad things happen when their cars get shipped, and sure as heck, the same thing happened to this car. It got shipped using a reputable shipper who is considered very reliable and extremely expensive. The car arrives, and the side view mirror is damaged. It's got a bunch of scratches on it, and after some discussions or whatever, I think they ended up paying him a little bit of money to get it repaired. Basically, 25 to 50% of the time when people ship these cars, something gets damaged. So that is why I started doing my own transportation with my own trailer. If you buy my consultation services, we can talk about if I can do that for you and transfer your car. It's not something I'm just offering to the general public, okay? I'm not gonna be like, hey, you've got a car in Oregon and wanna ship it to New York, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not a trucker. I'm not gonna become a trucker. That's not my job. All right, so I know that's a crazy story and it's complicated. And that's the thing is these things do get complicated. The stories are complex and intricate and it's difficult to find out the truth about these cars. And that is why you have to do your own due diligence. And that is also why I think hiring someone like me to help you out, it doesn't even have to be me, but hiring someone who knows these cars and has dealt with these sorts of transactions multiple times is a good idea when you're actually gonna buy these cars and spend this much money, frankly. So if you know cars really well and you know what to look for, then good. Use those skills, go see the car in person. I can't recommend that enough. Seeing the car in person is very important. And if you can't, make sure you get someone that you trust to do that, whether that's a PPI and it's a paid for technician, or if it's a good friend that happens to live in the area, or if you want to pay someone like me or whoever to go fly out there and check it out, that can be done too. But ultimately, it's buyer beware. You have to protect your own butt. Certainly in Texas, the laws are such that basically the dealership's off the hook. It's on your own problem. There's no expressed warranty or whatever. It doesn't matter if they disclose whether or not the car is damaged. It's on you to figure those things out. Good luck out there hunting for these things. And just remember, Carfax doesn't matter just because it's clean. And also just because the dealership says it's good doesn't mean it actually is. Do your homework and check it out yourself. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you guys have some epic stories, please feel free to put them in the comments below. I know a lot of you have dealt with some crazy crap. That's what inspired this one, is these awesome stories from some of my viewers. So please do that. Also, don't forget, go check out the Normal Guys Super Tour. It's coming up February 26th, so really soon. It's going to be a lot of fun, really good drives, and you don't have to have a supercar. So just a sports car will do. It's going to be fun. So join us on that. And then also, if you happen to want to do an epic once in a lifetime kind of trip, the Devaluation Tour of Colorado is coming up in September, so I still have open slots. Go check that out as well, ngsc.me/Colorado 2021. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching. We're gonna have lots more car stuff coming your way, so you're gonna want to stay tuned. It's gonna be sweet.